Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another virtual conversation with the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans. It's my great privilege and honor today to have CD10 Republican candidate Jennifer Zinone. Is that how it's pronounced, Jen?
Zinone. It was Zinone about
Zinone.
100 years ago. But it's
Oh,
Zinone.
okay. Well, I'm going back to old world Italy then, but
That's okay. My great grandparents would know.
Good. Well, they would appreciate that, I hope. But it's great to have you here, Jen. You posted a video on the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans group page on July 4th that was an excellent description of how important Independence Day is in our history. And it was a very, very provocative introduction as far as we're concerned in introducing yourself and what you believe. And we want to get to know you. And to start the program, please tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you, JR, first for inviting me here. And I think it's important what your site does, educating people about our Constitution and engaging them with what's going on in our nation, especially in relation to what we've seen lately. But about me, I was born and raised in Bayonne. I am the fifth generation of my family to live here, the sixth generation actually to attend my church, where I was church council president. I was board member of the New Jersey Women of the ELCA, a national voting representative. I studied microbiology and physics in college, but due to an autoimmune disease of the eyes, I could not continue in that field. So I spent 6 months waiting tables, which I had done since I was 15 in summers, just to figure out what I wanted to do with my life after focusing so long on that one thing. And that's when I decided to turn my love of reading into a career as a writer. So I never planned on being a politician. I was always interested in our government and how it works. I was in student senate in college, although I didn't actually find my love of our founding history until a few years later. I was researching the American Revolution for a writing project that I was working on. And I spent an entire year just in-depth research, reading everything I could find. I went to Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill, and just being in those places hold such significance.
Yes.
And the more that I learned, the more I got hooked. And I've been a Founding Fathers fan ever since. I mean, how could you not? What they've given. So that's
right.
That's basically what brought me here, just watching everything that's going on in our country now. And I got tired of having candidates that I could barely bring myself to vote for, and feeling like I'm not being represented, and repeatedly saying, isn't there somebody better? Isn't there somebody who knows the Constitution, who believes in what our government's supposed to be? And then finally, a year ago, I started saying, well, I could do that. Why not me? Why just wait for somebody else to step up? So that's why I finally made that leap into a new career that I didn't see coming.
Well, that's fantastic. And the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans, then, Jen, we want to be able to hold the bar higher for our elected representatives. You being a student of history and studying the Revolutionary War, studying the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, I mean, these are the foundations that make a representative that are all too lacking, from the very top office in the country down to the township committeeman or the freeholder. We need to hold representatives accountable, Jen, to knowing the Constitution, knowing the principles of the Declaration of Independence, because if they don't know these, how can they govern? How do they know what the purpose of government is? And we know, and you know, that the purpose of government is to secure these rights. What rights? The unalienable God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But I want to read for the audience your introductory remarks on JenZinone.com. And I invite everybody to go to her website. That's JenZinone.com. And she says that I believe we can restore hope in the midst of the anger of our nation. Very, very important first introductory sentence, Jen, and very provocative in thought. And she also goes on to say, we can put aside our differences and work together across party lines to help people, but we must stop thinking of each other as an enemy, as evil. If we look to the good in all of us and find that what unites us rather than what divides, imagine the good that we can do. After all, we are, at our very founding and core, a nation of disjointed independent states united into one nation under God. If we are to remain indivisible, we must continue the fight for freedom, liberty, and justice for all. And of course, that is our great motto. So Jen, elaborate on that extraordinary introduction on your website.
Well, thank you. I actually wrote that months ago, before, the anger that's erupted across our nation. And
But it was there.
Yes, it was.
It was there. It was ready to pop, and it did.
That's true. That's true. And I guess I just find it inspirational that we were created by these 13 separate states, then colonies. And I love that the Declaration changed it to states, like the state of Great Britain. And you pick up little things like that, you more read. But it's astounding that these separate colonies agreed to yield some of their power to an as yet still uncreated central government. Like, it was just the promise of what could be. And if that's our basic founding, why can't we do that today? I mean, why can't we come together like that with all our differences? And compromises were made back then, obviously, and compromises need to be made now. I think we need to stop looking at each other as the enemy. And the people are just hurting because of it. With this stalemate in Washington, and you have radicals in the Democratic Party that are actually saying that we will not compromise. Omar said that last week. We will not compromise. Compromise is what got us here. And the government just won't function that way. And we won't heal this anger, and we won't solve the problems that Americans are facing unless we come together like they did back then and work together.
Exactly. Exactly, Jen, and you're correct. And we often talk about the similarities between the time that we're living now in our nation and the time just prior to the Civil War, the great divide that occurred in this nation at that time over slavery, initially, which was fracturing the Union. And the great Civil War occurred, and the Republican Party was created to stop the expansion of slavery. And then Abraham Lincoln emancipated slavery. We believe that today the Republican Party needs to be the party of emancipating those children awaiting birth in their mother's wombs. And that the great injustice of slavery is similar to the great injustice imposed on those who are awaiting birth. And the great injustice of Dred Scott decision is very similar to the injustice of Roe v. Wade. And of course, our nation is splintered and split in many ways, and our union is under great attack. And of course, Lincoln talked about a house divided against itself cannot stand. And you are articulating these same ideals and communicating that to those who you seek to represent, are you not?
Absolutely. It's 100% the way I believe. We have to, because it's not working now.
That's right. And you talk about the Democrats and their inability to try to cooperate. And that's Jen largely due because they believe in a totally different purpose for government than what we believe in as Republicans. They believe that they have to help certain distinctions, entity groups, racial politics drives their motivation. They're very much interested in the public sector. but yet you're espounding the initial Republican principle of liberty and justice for all. Everyone needs to be included
Yes.
and given equal opportunity, right?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, there are policies that have been put in place over the decades that have harmed other populations. But those policies, they're not going to be overturned if you keep putting the same people in office that initiated them. I mean, my district has been run by Democrats for 70 years, and the decline in our inner cities started 60 years ago. So you got to look at that, and these towns that are having all of these problems right now, they're run by Democrats. So the fact that people don't see that, it astonishes me. Like I can't understand that. These are the policies that these people have put into place, and these are the consequences. So why keep electing them?
Exactly.
Hopefully people are waking up.
Well, it will take voices like yours, who are, you're good as a representative, as a candidate, Jen. You're an educator. You have to talk about these principles. You have to talk about all that you've learned about our American exceptionalism, which is founded on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which protects the principles that are in the Declaration of Independence. Let's talk about some of the policies that you have placed on your website, which are very thorough and very, they are very indicative of initial Republican principles in providing equal opportunity for all and equal application of the law to all. So let's talk about the deficit situation that we have in the nation and the bureaucratic and administrative agencies that drive the spending.
Well, it's another thing that I find astonishing. Just the waste that our government, they are not fiscally responsible with our money, with our tax dollars. And our nation was not founded to be run by bureaucrats. We are supposed to be run by people that are elected. Part of the reason that I was drawn initially to the House of Representatives is because it's supposed to be the closest to the people. They're supposed to be voted in, and that's why it's done every 2 years. And we need to change this bureaucracy. They have a stranglehold on our nation with these laws, these rules and regulations that hold the weight of law, and they shouldn't. Until we get rid of them and throwing money at them, it's not going to change. Just some of the waste we have. I guess you read it on my website. I put a couple of the wasteful things on there that we spend our taxpayers' hard-earned money on. But there was a play in New Hampshire that was government-funded, taxpayer money, dogs performing Hamlet. They literally just dressed dogs up in costume and let them run around a field and said that was a play. And we paid for it. Taxpayers paid for this. They had it's crazy. They had $5 million in fraudulent spending on credit cards. So they spent $100 million to study how to stop the $5 million. It's outrageous, and people need to know that this is going on. From what I see in my community, and I'm guessing that it's like that across the nation, people are so focused on their own lives. And I mean, that's expected. Our government is supposed to take care of that, and we're supposed to be able to focus on our lives, but they don't look up and see what's happened, and what they're doing. And we have to wake them up. We have to wake America up to see what our government has been doing, what our politicians have been doing.
One of the things that's encouraging about you being involved now and wanting to be a representative, Jen, is your willingness to try to help the other side in the respect that maybe we can have a conversation and convince them of truths. we talk a lot about natural law and natural rights, and we want to be able to. We don't want to inflame the other side. We don't want to inflame the anger and rage of the other side, as much as we would want to, pour cold water on that, on a lot of the fire, and to talk about the purpose of government, and that this constitutional Republican government is the most, is the greatest government that has ever been devised by man in protecting your rights and giving you the ability to freely speak, which the left wants to infringe on, your ability to carry and bear firearms, which is another, again, the left wants to infringe on. And then we can go right on down the deprivation of due process and rights given New Jersey citizens during this pandemic that shut down so many businesses and had such a negative impact on literally a million or more New Jersey residents. And all of these executive orders coming from the governor are all unconstitutional, as we've been showing in going through the lessons in the New Jersey Constitution. But what are your thoughts on the devastation that's occurred with shutting down businesses in New Jersey without due process?
I think that people need to bring lawsuits. I don't think it's going to change unless that happens. And I think we're a very litigious society, so I typically don't agree with that. But if we don't start fighting back, it's not going to change. I think we have to, because once a tyrant takes power, they don't give it up easily. But also, as somebody who studied microbiology, I see the danger that the virus can pose. So I understand the need to weigh that, but they can't just unilaterally shut the country down. We have the right to make our decisions. Give us the information needed, and trust the people will make the right decision.
Right. The Constitution isn't usurped, or the Constitution isn't overruled, or the Constitution isn't put on pause due to a health crisis, due to a public health crisis. It's not the purpose of the governor to take away the liberties and the constitutional rights of the people in the name of public health. And he's wrong in doing that. But as you're well aware of, Jen, with the influx and the acceptance of progressivism for over 100 years, with Woodrow Wilson defining a new role for the executive, for the presidential branch, which of course the governor would represent in New Jersey. And then Franklin Delano Roosevelt taking unprecedented steps, asking in his inauguration address in 1932 that Congress give him special powers to wage this war against the Depression, and give him powers that were not in the Constitution. Then, of course, later on, we see LBJ and his Great Society, which was a redistribution of wealth and favoring some at the expense of others. And in all along the executive branch, which translated into the governors, has become much, much too powerful. And as you just said, that the legislative branch was intended to be the closest to the people, and really the one who had the most responsibility as far as the holding the power of the purse, creating legislation. The executive cannot create laws. Right. So how do you think that we can continue to, or do you think we'll be successful in teaching our citizens and teaching candidates and representatives what the poisons of progressivism have already accomplished over a long time in our history? Do you think we can do that?
I hope so. I usually am a little more optimistic, I think. But one thing that the progressives have done exceedingly well, and I think that we weren't paying attention enough over the last few decades, is how they insinuated themselves into the education system. And they start indoctrinating these children in kindergarten now with some of these programs. So by the time now we're seeing this generation that is rioting and just filled with so much anger and hatred for our country, it's because that's what they've been taught their whole lives. And I think that the only way that we can defend against it, and I mean, this is long-term thinking, it's not, going to happen immediately, but I think that we need to start taking back our schools. We need to educate these children. Every high school student should have to read the Federalist Papers.
Yes.
I
Great
strongly
idea.
believe that school curriculums in the U.S. they need to spend more time teaching the Constitution, how it works, its overall meaning to us and to the world, and what influenced the writers of the Constitution, so they understand what's behind it, and the Declaration of Independence. They need to know who influenced Jefferson and Adams, such as John Locke, who is ironically considered the father of liberalism, if you can imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
So if we want young people to grow into good citizens, we need to insist that they understand the founding documents that helped create and shape America. They need to understand why the colonists were fearful of a strong central government and the danger it poses to us today. Why they so fiercely held on to states' rights and demanded the checks and balances that we're famous for the world over. They need to be taught not the bad of our founding and the evil that they're being told that our founders did. They need to be taught what we fought against, the tyranny that we broke away from,
right.
What these people sacrificed, and why,
right.
what's so important about what these people did, how it's bigger than who they were as individuals, that those statues of our founding fathers that they're tearing down, they stand for so much more, and the legacy that they gifted us with. And we can't let that be stolen from us ever. Benjamin Franklin famously warned us that they've given us a republic if we can keep it.
Yes.
So we need to start teaching our children that, and I think that's the only way we could fight against it. I know Donald Trump is trying with the universities now. Hopefully that works out, but I think that's our only hope.
Yeah, you're correct. And we've talked about this since the founding of the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans in 2017, the need to educate. We have a revisionist agenda that has infiltrated the schools from kindergarten on up, as you've said, and also in our higher institutions of education, the colleges and universities. And what has happened, Jen, is that they have eliminated critical thinking. They've eliminated free thinking. They want to dictate. They want to tell people what to do and think. And that gets down to the progressive idea that human beings don't have a human nature, which is completely contrary to what the founders knew and understood, that we do indeed have a human nature. And they created our government in lieu and in light of that human nature. But the progressives, led by really starting with Darwin, then John Dewey, the Dewey Decimal System, probably the most influential philosopher in American history in the 20th century. He believed that people were blank slates and that the people needed to be programmed and the people needed to be told what to do and how they were supposed to fit into the community. So it's great to hear you talking about the need for real education, not giving money to it, but to giving principle and truth to the actual teaching in the curriculum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm a supporter of school choice. I think the public schools are failing our children, and they keep saying, well, it's because we need more funding. We need more funding. Newark, it's in my district, they have a $1 billion annual school budget. 850 million of it comes from the state, and they have some of the lowest scores in the nation. New Jersey is rated 4th across the nation for our schools, but Newark is so far below that. 80% of boys and 69% of girls age 15 are not proficient in reading and math. So what kind of a future do these children have? And what kind of a voting citizen will they be when they're older? And it's dangerous. And I mean, that's how you end up in the cycle of poverty too. They will not break that if these children do not have a proper education. And obviously money is not helping. The unions just have a stranglehold on it. So I'm a huge proponent of school choice. Let the parents decide what type of education they want. And unfortunately,
yes,
this shutdown has really shown the hands of some of these progressives. I forget the name of the person, but it was a Harvard professor who actually said when we started teaching from home because of the shutdown, that it was dangerous for parents to have so much control over what their children learn. I mean, that flies in the face of everything our nation stands for. And I mean, the Supreme Court has ruled over and over again asserting parental rights, but like you said, the state just wants to take your children starting at 4 years old, you know, pre-K, kindergarten, and they want to indoctrinate them in what they believe is right. And we can't let them. And I think parents are starting to wake up because it's gotten so radical now. Just with this new curriculum that they passed, I think it's a wake-up call, finally. But it's going to take some work.
Well, Jen, people can go to your website, jenzinone.com. They can go to your Facebook page. Is it Jen Zinone or is it Jennifer Zinone for CD10? Which
Jen Zinone, just JenZinone.
Jen Zinone, and the audience, you're going to want to watch her videos. She's putting videos out. Jen, will you please come back and talk to us soon? I'd like to talk to you at least once a month if we could before the election in November, because we are very invigorated. We're very enthused about your candidacy. And this discussion today is just further vindicated our great enthusiasm for you and your candidacy, your knowledge of our history, your knowledge of education and the academic achievements that you have. This is what we need from representatives and candidates, and you're exemplifying those attributes, and we want to continue to share with our citizens all of the great ideas and the great knowledge that you have so that you're able to effectively represent the people of CD10 in Washington, D.C. So do you have any further remarks that you'd like to give us before we sign off today?
I just want to thank you. I would absolutely love to come back once a month and speak with you. I think what you're doing is important, and it's in line exactly with why I'm running, and the message that I think we need to get out to people. We need to stop being afraid and stop letting people shut us down. We can't be the silent majority anymore. It's past that now. We need to talk to our neighbors but not shout at them like the other side shouts at us. I think we need to have open conversations and just let them see that we're not evil. Like, our ideas are not bad. They're not going to put people down, that we're trying to lift everybody up.
That's right.
And I think that's important that we get that out there. What we believe in, why.
That's exactly right. And your message is resonating, and it's just begun. We're happy to be part of your candidacy, and the people of CD10 need to learn more about you and to get enthused and excited about voting for you this November. But we will be in touch soon, Jen. We'll have you back. We'll look forward to it. We'll have another excellent discussion. And I want to thank you for joining me today. And I want to thank all of our audience and our citizens. And remember, as Jen Zinone said in her introduction, we, the Constitutional Republican Movement, believe in liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Have a great day. Oh, I think I closed out.